What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another 60 feet 6 inches, your fantasy baseball home over at fakepigskin.com. I'm your host, Kyle Robert. Follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me once again, it's after a couple week layoff. It's Ben Rolfe. What's up, Ben?
Not much, Kyle. As I was just saying to you, I think I've managed to pull both my hamstrings. So it's been an entertaining day for my wife watching me try and pick up our daughter. It's not been my smoothest day of the year. Let's put it that way.
I might as well call you Masahiro Tanaka for the rest of the show because he seemed to do the same thing, and we'll get into him pretty soon and talk about what's going on there. But Ben, it's been a couple weeks. I got married and then went on my honeymoon, so I appreciate everyone's patience and understanding with the lack of shows. But we are back. We are here. We're going to give you some information, some injury updates, some guys to target on the waiver wire, all that good stuff. And we're back to help you win your leagues. So Ben, let's just jump into it and talk about some injured pitchers because it seems like over the last 2 weeks since we've been gone, everyone's gotten injured again, or injured for the first time, and they're missing time. Obviously Kershaw, obviously Darvish, but some of the big names as of recently, and we'll start in DC with Stephen Strasburg, which, I mean, it feels like a yearly tradition at this point with Strasburg, where if not at one point or another, he's always dealing with something. He's missing a little bit of time here, a little bit of time there. Dealing with right shoulder inflammation. I guess if you're a Strasburg owner, how concerned are you about this injury and kind of his potential to help your team going forward?
The problem is with Strasburg, it's just permanent worry. Like, I've owned him in a keeper league now for 5 or so years, and it's just every year you question what you're going to get. Are you going to get the 200 innings you got in 2014 where he was good but not his best, if that makes sense? Or are you going to get like the 2015 version where you get like only 120 innings? It's so tough owning him. And it's one of those things where you never feel like you can sell him because you always feel like you're selling 50 cents on the dollar, because when he's at his best, he's on the verge of a top 5 pitcher when he's at his best.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he's a guy you don't ever consider taking out of your lineup. Probably the only reason we don't talk about him alongside the Kluber, Sale, Scherzer, Kershaw group is because of the injury risk. That's probably the main reason I would say that he doesn't ever get lumped in, is because you cannot rely on him for 100 and even 175 innings regularly. That's what he gave you last year, but I doubt he's going to give you that this year now.
Yeah, I guess you mentioned that we don't really lump him in with some of those names, but Kershaw, I think, is going to be in that group now the way he gets injured. So it seems like Strasburg and Kershaw are kind of two of those guys that when they're on and they're pitching, they're incredible, and they're basically an advanced version, a much better version of, like, when James Paxton or Rich Hill, when they were, you use them when they're great and they're healthy, and then when they're not, you kind of have to just suck it up.
Yeah, the most annoying thing about this with Strasburg is I was looking at his home runs per nine just the other day, and they're up at 1.34, which is higher than his career average, which is 0.86 in the major leagues. And I was thinking, right, this 3.46 ERA could easily be what his xFIP is at around 3 if he gets some of that home run, like if he gets some home run regression. I didn't look deeper into the numbers, but I was just looking at that and thinking, I could be in for a good second half for Strasburg. And actually, I was thinking about buying him in some leagues and just seeing if some people were just bored of Strasburg being Strasburg, if that makes sense. So this is just a bit disappointing. This is just...
Well,
the trouble is, like I say, I'm not going to go and sell him now, but I can't. You can't do anything. Go on. What was that?
Oh, I was going to say is what are we doing with him? Because if he comes back and looks like maybe he has a really good outing or two, is that a point where you're like, all right, I don't want to deal with this headache anymore, I'm going to try and sell him? Or are you thinking maybe I'll try and buy a little bit lower, knowing when he comes back from the DL, he'll be so good, and maybe I'll give somebody, something that's a little more stable in hopes that they bite and pull the trigger?
Yeah, right now you want to look to buy low on Strasburg, but
Okay.
there possibly will become a point where when he comes back, 3 or 4 starts in, if he's been ace-like, you might want to try and flip him for Kershaw or someone like that. But selling high on Strasburg is so hard. You're never going to sell high on him, because selling high, you are going to be targeting a Kluber, a Sale, a Bumgarner if he's at his best, or a Scherzer, and you're going to struggle to convince anybody to part with one of those for Strasburg. So
Yeah.
if you're going to sell Strasburg high, it's got to be Strasburg and a hitter for a hitter and a lesser pitcher kind of thing. It's got to be like maybe it's an owner with Mookie Betts who's frustrated because he hasn't got Betts in his outfield, and you package Strasburg and something for Betts and a lower pitcher. It's something like that. Selling high on him is so hard, but now would be the time to try and offer up a top 25-ish pitcher and say, hey, especially if he's got a few DL guys, you want this guy? He's going to pitch for you tomorrow. Strasburg's not going to pitch for you for a couple of weeks, maybe even longer.
Yeah. It is a rough road to hoe, but I think having Strasburg on your team, you know, like you said, you may miss a start here, miss a start there, but I'd rather him miss a start and be able to pitch most of the season than try and push through it and end up hurting himself worse. Something that
you don't ever go in there and consider taking him out. Strasburg's one of those guys where the only time you take him out of your lineup is if you need that lineup spot for someone else who's starting.
Yeah.
Like, he's not a guy that you say, right, I can't be asking him today. Like, it's just not what happens. He is one of those guys you just put in every single time, and when he has the bad line, you go, oh well, bad things happen. And when he has a good line, you think about how great you are for owning Stephen Strasburg.
So would you rather have Strasburg or Bumgarner the rest of the way?
That's a horrible question because I like Strasburg, but I think Bumgarner is so good. I think I'd probably go Bumgarner just because of the uncertainty around Strasburg at this exact moment.
Would you rather go Strasburg or Luis Severino?
Probably still Strasburg, but again, I think you could. I think I could easily swap that in the right situation. It depends if I need pitching right now.
See, and I think that's a move that could make sense where if there's a team that wants pitching and doesn't want to deal with the nonsense, I could see you being okay with that. And I could also see people who, you know, love Stephen Strasburg being like, you know what, I'll move on from Strasburg at this point. Give me Severino, who I know will pitch, who's been incredible this year. I'm looking at the player rater right now. He's a top 5 guy. Holy shit. Blake Snell, number 6. I love that guy. I'm so happy to see him pitching well, and doing good things. He's number 6. That's pretty awesome. Let's talk Yankees. Let's talk Tanaka, who, like you, Ben, is dealing with hamstring tightness in both hamstrings, not just one, not just a left, not just a right, but both. Aaron Boone said he expects it to be weeks, not days, for Tanaka. So, you know, obviously he hit the DL. Yankees are struggling to find pitching. Obviously, Montgomery's done for the year. You know, Severino's been incredible. If you're a Tanaka owner, do you just put him on your bench and hopefully when he comes back, he just pops right back in and gets back to his old self?
I'm really pleased that you've compared me to an actual athlete. That makes me so happy. Tanaka, from what I understand, it looks like the All-Star break is the kind of target. I think, according to NewJersey.com, Brendan Kuty, it looks like they think he could return prior to the All-Star game, but I don't imagine it's going to be much before that. Yeah. So, given that he's got a 4.58 ERA and a 9.04 K per 9, I'm cool if you want to try and move on from him, but at this stage, he's probably not bad enough that you're not stashing him. Like, there must be someone worse on your DL spot, unless you've got Kershaw and Strasburg on your DL spots, in which case then I'd probably just ditch Tanaka and you're probably okay long run. But anyway, it's so hard with Tanaka. One day he gives you a great outing, the next he just blows up. I hate owning him. He's a guy I never draft. The home run per 9 at 1.98 this year, it's just insane. And I honestly, I don't own him anywhere, which makes this a very hard. It's always hard to do that hypothetical when you don't actually own him. But I think I would. I think I'd be cutting bait. I just not interested anymore in him.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy, Ben. Come on, Ben.
He's got a 21.6 home run to fly ball rate. I mean, there's got to be you must be able to stream better than that.
Maybe depend. Obviously, league context will do a lot of that, but I don't know. I think that's I think cutting him is far too aggressive. Although last year he was at 21.2 after being at 12 and a 16 in terms of home run to fly balls. So it seems like it might be a little bit more of a trend. But my guess is he makes one start for about 4 or 5 innings before the All-Star break, works over the All-Star break, and comes back, and he's really strong. He's actually a guy that over the All-Star break, or even now, I might be looking to buy low on, and see if I can't get a decent deal, knowing I can get a strong second half. We'll stay.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to buy now and do what we just said with Strasburg, buy low now and then try and sell after a couple of good starts, I'd be all up for that.
Yeah, totally agree. Let's talk about another pitcher in New York, which it seems like the Mets. There's always something weird going on, including Michael Conforto possibly getting sent to the minors, which is very Mets. But Noah Syndergaard is on the DL. He was actually supposed to pitch today. He was replaced by Seth Lugo. But now they're saying that I guess they are hopeful he can return this week. There's still kind of up in the air. If you're setting weekly leagues, are you putting Noah Syndergaard in your lineup, or are you going to wait a week?
I think I'm going to have to wait a week. I just don't know the situation at this point. I think it's not worth the risk of getting a zero. Someone you can put in, even if it's a relief pitcher, will give you something. And even if he does come back, is there a chance he's on a little bit of a pitch count?
Oh, yeah.
But when they're talking about next weekend as a best case scenario, I mean, pitching in Arizona would be a great bonus, but I'm just not confident enough that I'd be starting him.
Yeah, I'm probably with you. Obviously, if you have, in deeper leagues where there's just not options, I probably take the gamble that he pitches. But yeah, he basically played some catch, had some discomfort and swelling, so obviously got skipped on Sunday, which is today. But there's potential that he could pitch sometime this week. My guess is they wait a week and pitch him again next weekend. So I probably sit him this week in hopes that I can have a better option for 1 week and then come back with him when I know he's going to pitch for sure.
Just on a side note, he's got his contract this year is $3 million on a 1-year contract. If the Mets don't turn him into something franchise changing in some sort of pitching deal for a rental, then they've made a terrible mistake. I mean, Syndergaard is the perfect trade chip right now, and I would love for one to see him somewhere where they actually know how to look after pitchers. So I'm hoping they send him anywhere that's not Colorado.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of chatter right now about because the Mets, completely fallen apart. That Syndergaard or DeGrom could be moved, and I'd really love to see one of those guys in San Francisco, a team that really needs some pitching. I don't know if we have the pieces. I'm wondering. Obviously, the Yankees would make sense, but there's a lot of talk that because they're in the same city and all that stuff, they won't make that move. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any of these teams with loaded with young. What about the Cubs? Do you think the Cubs would get between obviously Darvish, who is still on the DL, Quintana hasn't been great, Lester's been fine. They clearly need help, and they have a ton of young pieces. Do you think that's a situation that could make sense?
Perhaps, but it's your division that I'm looking at because it's so tightly bunched in that division. Mm-hmm. I could see the Dodgers doing it. They've got the pieces to make it work. I could see the Diamondbacks with Zach Godley struggling, and I think is Robbie Ray back yet? Can't. Because I haven't seen Robbie Ray for a while, so yeah. I could see the Diamondbacks doing it. That I don't know what they've got minor league wise. I'm not all caught up on all of them. But it'll be interesting. And I mean, when you've got the likes of Noah Syndergaard out there for $3 million for 1 year, it makes the Rangers' job in trying to sell Cole Hamels seem very difficult, considering his monster contract. It's going to be interesting to see where Syndergaard goes. I agree with you. It's either going to be DeGrom or Syndergaard, because I guess they're going to want to try and sign the other one to a long-term contract.
Yeah, I think DeGrom is locked up for a while, but they have 3 years of arbitration still with Syndergaard, so they can keep him under salary.
Okay.
For a long time if they want, but yeah, he's definitely. I mean, he's 25. He has dealt with some injuries, but it's time to keep him and DeGrom are both under their arbitration. DeGrom only has 2 more years, so it would be interesting to see. It'd be very Mets of them just to they could trade both of them and restock their whole team and
Yeah.
go for it in a couple of years. I mean, obviously the Harvey thing didn't work out, so they're not doing very well, and maybe they can move Conforto in one of the deals and actually let him play baseball somewhere with a stable franchise instead of the mess that is the Mets. But that's another discussion for another day. Let's talk some Shohei Ohtani, who when he's played, he's been awesome, but he's on the DL with a sprained UCL, which is very scary. Sometimes these lead to Tommy John and other long-term, surgery type issues. Do you think the Angels are kind of trying to be careful with Ohtani, who, like when he was quote unquote hurt before, they still let him hit. Now they realize that maybe they need to be a little more patient. I guess, what are your thoughts on Ohtani? You think it's, they're saying July before we see him, so probably after the All-Star break?
Yeah, well, they're not going to reevaluate his status for 3 weeks. So that was on the 8th. So that's not going to be until that's not going to be until the end of June. So the earliest we see him, I would say, is the All-Star break. Let's say they reevaluate him there. They're probably then going to want him to do a little bit of work, like pre-game, like they often do. They get them to throw a bit of live batting practice, don't they? That's what Chris Archer's been doing. Then they'll probably send him out on a rehab assignment. So yeah, I think you might see them try and pitch him in the game before the All-Star break, and then give him the All-Star break and a bit longer to get sort of through it, so they can work their rotation that way. Did he have? I want to say that he had some concerns about this elbow in the preseason, and it all kind of got just sort of brushed off over the season. It's just interesting. It's such a risky thing because they're kind of fading away a little bit in the push for the playoffs this year. But you have to think, with him under the contract he's under for as long as he is, that you've got to be careful with him, because him and Trout for the next however many years could be a dynamite pairing. Mm-hmm. And they'd be stupid to risk him. And I worry that what happens is he comes back, he feels a niggle, and they shut him down for the year. You've missed the boat to sell on him now, but if he comes back, even for one start, I think I'm selling the moment he comes back.
Yeah, there's no way I'm doing that. But I think he's been so good when he's pitching. So I guess, who would you rather take a shot on the rest of the way? Shohei Ohtani or Tanaka?
I'm talking about the temptation of dropping Tanaka. I'm talking about trading Ohtani.
So Ohtani is the answer. Kind of broke up right there. No, I mean, I'm okay. I just wanted to see where you were at. Well, if I can give you Strasburg for Ohtani, is that a move you're making tomorrow?
If you're giving me Strasburg and taking Ohtani off me, 100%.
Okay. Let's see. Let me go a little bit lower. If I give you Jose Barrios, will you give me Ohtani?
Ooh.
Right now?
Right now, yes.
Aaron Nola?
Aaron Nola is a guy I have absolutely no concept of how he is doing, so that's a great question. He's just one of those pitchers, and I'm guessing by that it means he's not doing very badly.
Aaron Nola could start. Aaron Nola could start the All-Star game. He's 7-2. He's got 80 strikeouts. He's got an ERA, 2.3 ERA. He's got a WHIP under 1. Aaron Nola's been incredible.
Now, this deal probably depends on whether or not you are talking about Ohtani the pitcher or Ohtani the dual player, because I think I'd be more likely to try and hold him over Nola and perhaps over Berrios if he's a dual player and he can in daily lineups he can hit for me. But if I'm in a weekly lock league or I'm in a league where he's only the pitcher for me, so on Yahoo, then I'm gonna I'm gonna sell him for both Nola and Berrios. But if he's a daily lineup where I can have him as both hitter and pitcher, then I'm keeping Ohtani.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Let's talk about Walker Buehler, who is fitting in awesomely with the Dodgers in terms of finding ways to be injured. He left with rib soreness on, I think, Saturday. So, Rich Hill, Clayton Kershaw, The Dodgers just can't keep starters healthy, so I feel bad for whoever they trade for this before the deadline, whether that's Cole Hamels, whether that's Chris Archer, whether that's one of the Mets guys, because I'm sure they'll find a way to end up on the DL. But I guess for Walker Buehler, obviously he's a young guy, so they're going to be a little more selective and a little more patient. Do you think this is just a quick thing where maybe he may maybe he doesn't even miss a start, but misses one start at most?
Yeah, I don't know how they make him miss a start. Their rotation is so thin on the ground at the moment. It feels like. I yeah, I think possibly he's going to miss one start, maybe more than that. The Dodgers are going to try and get him out there because he's pitched so well, and and they're in a push for a playoff position, aren't they? I mean, but I'm kind of all for these Dodgers pitchers getting injured so they can give us another crap prospect like Willie Calhoun in return for the Texas Rangers pitcher in Cole Hamels. I mean, I love prospects who can't field.
Well, the Dodgers love pitchers that can't actually pitch, so it seems like
it's a fair trade, actually.
Seems like a win-win scenario, yeah.
I mean, we've got Willie Calhoun in the minor leagues. They've got Yu Darvish pitching for the Cubs, so I think we're both as successful as each other on that one.
Let's talk about some guys coming back from the DL, some long-awaited returns. We'll start in DC, and let's talk about Daniel Murphy and Adam Eaton. Adam Eaton got it activated over the weekend. Daniel Murphy, I think, is back Monday. Both these guys are back. I guess let's start with Murphy, who is finally back, even though they were saying it might be just a couple weeks. What are your expectations for him? I guess, high average, but plays every day, solidifies a lot of middle infield for the teams that have been patient and held on to him.
Yeah, I mean, initially you're probably looking at what the Rangers are doing with Beltray at the moment, where it's kind of, I know they don't have the luxury of designated hitter, but it's probably like 2 days on, 1 day off, or initially it's like every other day. So for the first few weeks, it's going to be frustrating for the Murphy owner. You're gonna find, especially in weekly leagues, you're gonna struggle to trust starting him still. But in daily leagues, you're gonna just chuck him out there when he pitches. I think you're right. I think the end of season line looks something in the 280 to 300 region. I think you're looking from this point onwards, maybe 10 home runs. I wouldn't bank on any steals, and I don't know, 50-ish runs and 50-ish RBI. I think that's exactly what he's going to be. I think the Nationals lineup is just what it is. I think it'd be interesting to see what the Nationals do, whether or not they're all in on this year with the last year of Bryce Harper. That would be my only concern, because there is sort of a scenario where the Nationals could go out and trade for Manny Machado, and if they do that, then that would shift Turner perhaps either into center field or into second base and eat into Murphy's playing time, although saying that, Murphy could just go and play a bit more first base, and Ryan Zimmerman won't ever have to play again, and that would be good for everyone.
Yep, and the Matt Adams thing isn't really working out, so yeah, I think that would make the most sense, and probably help Murphy stay a little more healthy. But it's he's been pretty solid in Double-A, showing off a little bit of power. I'm with you. I think close to double digit home runs the rest of the way. I think he'll hit over 300, like 315, something like that. Maybe 40, 50, something like that. It makes a lot of sense. Now, Adam Eaton, good to have him back as well. Obviously, Michael Taylor has been, fine. His average is terrible, but he also offers some speed. It'll be interesting to see how, obviously, Harper will play every day. I think they'll kind of piecemeal the outfield together with Eaton and give him some days off here and there. He's another guy. Do you think there's a potential for him to hit, close to double-digit home runs and have double-digit steals the rest of the way?
You might be pushing it with the home runs the rest of the way. I mean, his career best is 14. I'm not sure he has enough time to get to double digits going forward, but double-digit steals is very feasible, and I mean somewhere in the region of 280, 300 is definitely what I'd be looking at from Eaton. I don't think playing time is an issue. I think Michael Taylor is going to get sacked off pretty quickly if there's a question mark of that. What is it? Juan Soto is still in that outfield with them, and then obviously Bryce Harper. So I think Adam Eaton, there's not initially there'll be a little bit of just gentle kid gloves with him. At the moment, they're saying he's going to platoon with Michael Taylor. I think that's utter crap. I can't see that being a long-term platoon.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think you just get Adam Eaton back in your lineup when he's active,
Who would you
when
rather?
he's in the lineup.
Who would you rather own the rest of the way, Murphy or Eaton?
Um, it's it's tough because Murphy plays at the weaker position, but it's probably Eaton.
I think I go Murphy. Obviously, like you mentioned, the middle infield eligibility helps, but I expect a little better average. I think a few more home runs. Obviously, the steals are gonna be there for Eaton, not for Murphy. So
Yeah, it depends on your need for steals. If your
mhm.
need for steals is not at all, then you're not. Then it's Murphy. But if you are needing that little boost in steals, I think it is Eaton you go chasing.
Especially since I've been running out like guys like Travis Jankowski and Jared Dyson just to get a
Yep.
few steals. Even Michael Taylor. So you may be right there.
Oof.
It probably is Adam Eaton. Another guy finally returning, Justin Turner. He's coming back on Tuesday. Another guy that we've been waiting for the return for a while. This is a Dodgers lineup that's been crushing. Actually, I was looking at their June numbers and, scored the most runs so far in the month of June, slugging over 600. Like this offense has been on fire. Obviously, Matt Kemp's been great. We'll talk some Jock Peterson here in a second. The return of Justin Turner, you think he comes back, slots right into that middle of that lineup and starts hitting well?
Yeah, I think the same as what we've just discussed with Beltran, that they use kid gloves initially, just plays second base 2 days, has a day off, or plays third base 2 days, has a day off kind of thing. But I expect when he's around, he's going to hit 2, 3. I think you feed off what's going on around you, don't you? It all kind of comes from that. So it again, definitely something just to watch. But as long as he's hitting near the top of the lineup, I've got no issues with him. I think he'll be a top 10 third baseman rest of the way.
Would you rather have Daniel Murphy or Justin Turner?
Um, Probably Murphy by a fraction. I mean, I
Mm.
think he hits more home runs.
That will be interesting. I think they're both gonna, try and approach double digits. Turner maybe hits 1, 2 more, but yeah, I think it's gonna be very close. Um, let's talk about Eric Thames. He's finally back. He's rejoining the Brewers on Monday. It's an interesting thing because Jesus Aguilar has actually been really good for the Brewers, and obviously Ryan Braun's been crushing, and this is a team that plays really well. And now Thames is coming back, and I guess kind of how does he fit into what this team is doing? How are the playing time going to shake out, and what do you expect, I guess, from the Brewers?
Initially, it's going to be very frustrating if you own Thames, and because he is going to struggle playing time. I don't see them just turning their back on Aguilar, who's been quite good, especially for a waiver pickup. He's been really useful. Braun's been doing well. I mean, Domingo Santana can't even get in this lineup regularly, and I'd probably have Domingo Santana before I'd have Eric Thames. If you ignore the lefty-righty kind of stuff, I'd have Domingo Santana first, and Santana's played 2 games in the last 6. So
Yeah.
they love what they've got, and when they signed Lorenzo Cain and Christian Yelich, this was always going to be a problem. And especially we sort of spoke about Aguilar very briefly at the start of the year. If he did hit well in his opportunities, then it would be interesting. Now, the interesting thing for me is that Aguilar's only been sort of 103 in the last 7 days on the MLB power rankings. So whether or not he just cedes a couple of days, especially against whether it goes into a platoon, is what I'm interested in. Will Thames be the regular first baseman against right-handed pitching, and will Aguilar be the regular against left-handed? I don't know their platoon splits well enough, or Aguilar's platoon splits well enough to sort of know whether that's a possible feasibility, but it's something to watch out for, and it's something to worry about if you're the Aguilar owner. I don't think I'd worry if I was the Braun, Yelich, or Kane owner. I mean, if Domingo Santana can't take time off them, then Thames isn't. The thing I would watch for if I'm a Domingo Santana around it is if Thames comes back and slots in and looks good, watch out for a Domingo Santana trade.
Yeah, and there's some teams that need a little bit of power, including my Giants, so that could make a lot of sense. to ship him out. Aguiar's been hitting, he's hitting third today. He's obviously been in the middle of that lineup. So I guess in weekly leagues, are you starting Jesus Aguiar?
Yeah, I think I am. I think he's been so good. You have to roll with him and trust that he's gonna get the majority of the at bats at least next week. It's interesting. I'm just looking. He's actually hit equally as well in terms of average against the 295 to 306, but he's hit 8 of his home runs off right-handed pitching compared to 3 off left-handed. Now I know you have to take into account plate appearances, but it's sort of treble, so it's about right. So he's been fairly successful against both. So I don't see why they just suddenly decide that he can't hit right-handed pitching and take him out.
Yeah. So would you not play Eric Thames for a week?
I think I think you have to sit Eric Thames. I think you have to see what happens there.
Yep. I think I'm with you. Let's talk about Zach Britton, who's finally coming back. He's returning Monday. Obviously, Brad Brock's been their quote-unquote closer, but he's got an ERA over 4. He's got a whip at almost 2. He does have 10 saves. Do you think there's a chance that Zach Britton grabs his job back from the Brad Brock, Darren O'Day combo?
I think there's every chance, and especially when you consider that this is the final year of his contract and he is a trade chip. I could 100% see the Baltimore Orioles handing him 5 or 6 saves quite quickly and then shipping him out before the end of July. I really could. I think he's got every possibility. I'm just looking. It's so hard to judge the rehab assignment of a relief pitcher, isn't it? But little bit of concern that he only had 7 strikeouts per 9 last year, Zach Britton, before his injury. So it will be interesting to see quite what he does. I don't think he just walks back into the job, but I think what we see happening is we see if he pitches well and Brock blows up a couple of times, we'll see him get maybe 1 save opportunity in the next couple of weeks. And then around the All-Star break, that'll be when they really are trying to pump Britton's value because they're so far out of it.
Yeah. I think I'm with you. I think he could easily be a guy that gets moved close to the All-Star break and ends up on a contender down the stretch. Real quick, I wanted to mention the Giants. Obviously, Mark Melancon, who is back and actually looks sort of decent. Do you expect him to challenge Hunter Strickland for that closer role?
I mean, he's always going to challenge. That was what his role was when he was brought in. So, again, Hunter Strickland is not somebody whose innings I have been particularly familiar with, which again is probably a good thing if you're a closer. If you're a closer and no one's talking about you, that means you've done a good job. So he's always going to have a shot. I just would be interested to see whether or not if the Giants start to fade away, whether Melancon's contract is tradable. That's another interesting.
There's no way.
It's not.
So Bochy's saying that Melancon will be a 6th, 7th, 8th inning guy. But yeah, like Strickland's been good. He's got an ERA 2.25, a WHIP 1.114, 12 saves, 26 Ks over 28 innings. So he's been pretty solid. Now, if he hits some rough patches, like he had a blow up in Colorado, he had a bad game against Arizona. But for the most part, he's been pretty solid. So I think he's probably safe for now. But it will be interesting to see how it kind of shapes over the next month or two, depending on how kind of the team plays and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and if Melancon's good, one thing it does do is it takes you out of any kind of reckoning for the Zach Britton sweepstakes, because I would think a lot of your side, again, your division is so tight that I think there's going to be a lot of NL West teams who are going to be in the discussion for all of these kind of free agents, because it's not often that I mean, the NL is so tight in general that there is really a pennant up for grabs. There is a spot in the World Series up for grabs for whichever team is aggressive enough to go and take it. From about 12, I think, 12 or 13 could make it. So I think, well, let's count the Mets out, so let's say 11. But it's going to be fascinating to watch. And I think the All-Star break and the trades, it's going to really shake things up, and it's going to mean we see a lot of streamers come in after the All-Star break, because we see a lot of top pitchers sort of going to the same team and a lot of teams turning to younger guys, which I'm really looking forward to. That's the part of the season I enjoyed the most.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I mean, I'm looking at the standings right now, and The Diamondbacks are leading the West with the Dodgers, Rockies, and Giants only 2.5 back. The Cardinals, Cubs, and Brewers are all right there, and then the Phillies, Braves, and Nationals are all right there for their division. So, yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think there's a lot that could happen. Let's hit the waiver wire. Let's hit a few streamers and 2 start guys, and we can get out of here. So, I'm gonna throw out a few names. You tell me who's most interesting to you. Jock Peterson. Hitting 361 with 6 homers, 10 RBI, and 11 runs scored over the last 2 weeks in a very hot Dodgers lineup. Leonis Martin, who, he was actually really good and then got injured and kind of went away, and now he's back. And he's 275, 3 homers, 6 RBI, 4 steals over the last 2 weeks. Brian Anderson is hitting 396, which is great if you need a little average bump. 1 run, 7 RBI, 1 home run, 7 RBI, 6 runs. So he's not going to give you a ton of power, but he'll give you some decent RBI opportunities, some decent runs scored. And then Ben Zobrist is Zorilla hitting 310, 2 homers, 11 RBI, 1 steal. Joe Madden loves him. If you're looking for a little outfield help, who's the top name, and then I guess who's number 2 for you?
Probably Leonis Martin, just simply because we talked about the need for speed earlier, and is it worth it? And I know there's been a lot of articles written recently in various different sites about, is it worth paying up for or getting these guys who are going to just tonk your average in terms of just in return for getting steals? Leonis Martin at the moment is not tonking your average. He's also giving you power and stealing bases. He's not going to press steal numbers like Travis Jankowski would, but he's giving you a good all-round performance. If you're strictly just looking for riding the hot hand, go get Jock Pedersen. He's a lot of fun to follow and to watch. I mean, that's the kind of way I'm looking at it. Martin, if I just need that little speed boost, if I'm good for speed and I just want pure power, I'm going to go for Pedersen. My only concern there is he's not playing necessarily every day.
Yeah, and with Justin Turner back, it could get a little more interesting in kind of how they move people around and where everybody hits in the lineup. So are you taking Jankowski over Leonis Martin?
No, I'm taking Leonis Martin.
And then Jankowski, and then theoretically Jared Dyson and the Michael Taylor type guys if you're looking for just a speed bump.
Yeah, I don't know what someone like Delino DeShields, but I know he's been cold with the bat recently, but he stole 2 bases in a game this week, so he's another guy that I would have a look at. Might be a guy to trade for because he's so cold. He's been hitting 9th for the Rangers recently, but he seems to be saying all the right things. Like when you can just sort of... I apologize, I read a lot of Texas Rangers beat writer reporting, and he just seems to be saying all the right things. When a guy just seems keen and he's talking about the fact that he wants to... that he needs to work on things like he needs to work on his defense to keep him in the lineup, all that kind of stuff. He knows what he's talking about. His defense is so much better than Joey Gallo's, who's the backup center fielder. He's a guy I would be looking to buy at the moment, and he's a guy I have bought in one league already.
Yeah, well, he's right over the last 2 weeks. He's hitting 100 with 3 steals. So, once he's on base, he has the ability to steal, but he's barely hitting over the Mendoza line. So he's right there with Goodwin. I think I would take Dyson or Michael Taylor. I would take Dyson over Taylor and Delino, and then I would take probably Jankowski. The Padres outfield is interesting because Renfroe's back. They have what's the Franmil Reyes. They have
they've got a ton of outfielders. It's so interesting.
Jankowski. So it's kind of hard to really lock yourself into one of those guys, but Jankowski's been really good, and he runs whenever he gets on base. So go ahead.
Pitching. Let's talk some.
Yeah, let's talk
some pitching. Let's get on to some streamers. We've got a guy here that you and Damien have had a few little rows about in Chris Stratton. I very much like his first start at Miami.
Yeah.
But I have problems with his second start at the Dodgers, and we've talked about how hot the Dodgers are. You're the San Francisco Giants, boy. Well, what are you doing with Chris Stratton this week? Are you risking him?
I think that it really depends on what your other options are, but in most weekly leagues, I'm probably gonna run him out there. The at Miami start is good enough where even if the Dodgers start isn't great, he should still be pretty solid. Obviously, the strikeout potential is kind of all over the board, but he had 6 strikeouts at Atlanta, 7 strikeouts at Philly, 6 at the Cubs, 7 when he was home for Philly. There was a 1-1 and a 3 in there. So over his last 7 starts, he's got 4 6 or 7 strikeout games. So I think it's worthwhile there. I think the Miami start will be good, and maybe he catches the Dodgers on the right day, and he's pitched well against them in past outings. I think unless you have other home run options, I think he's probably a guy that has to be in your lineup.
Yeah, the only thing that's just terrified me is we were just looking at other names, and I was looking at Tyson Ross, and he had 2 bad starts against Miami, and it just made me worry a little bit that if Stratton's start against Miami is bad, and I'm in a weekly league, which fortunately I don't play many of, I then spend all week sweating over the Dodgers start, and it just gets a bit scary for me. So I think I'd definitely be sort of in a daily lineup blocks league starting against Miami, but I might hesitate to pull the trigger if it's a weekly league, just because when he's bad, he's really bad.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that let me actually look at the schedule, because it looks like the game that he'll pitch in on is a Sunday game, and unless it's the Sunday nighter, he should. Yep, it's not the Sunday night, so he'll face a weaker lineup. So of the Dodgers hitters, he'll probably have some guys getting days off, and all that stuff. So I think that'll actually help, hopefully limit the damage in a potential matchup.
Yeah, that's certainly interesting. Actually, that thing of pitching on a Sunday is extremely underrated for a pitcher to be facing those weaker lineups.
Yep, 100%. Talk to me about Mike Soroka. Obviously, pitching against the Mets is always a great time, and he should have a good opportunity if you're looking for a guy who's available in a lot of leagues.
Yeah, I mean, he had a decent first start against the Mets. Actually, his first start in the majors was against the Mets, and that was a 6 innings, 1 earned run, 5 strikeout outing. He struggled against the mighty San Francisco Giants, and then he fought back a little bit against Miami. I mean, he gave up 5 runs, but only 1 of them was earned. He struck out 7. Yeah. It's been a bit up and down, but he's a young guy. He's coming back off the disabled list. It does mean you're probably looking at him being limited to 5 innings, but if you're not in a starts cap league and you're just looking for some strikeouts and a bit of upside against a bad hitting team who might be Suns Michael Conforto by then as well, which would be even more hilarious, then go ahead and start him. But yeah, just keep an eye on it. Just make sure there's no setback or anything over the next couple of days. I might hesitate to start him in a weekly league. I'm always hesitant to put guys in that are predicted to come back off the disabled list, just in case anything goes wrong and they give me a big fat duck.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you there. Or he gets bumped in, then he ends up facing a much tougher lineup and then gets crushed. So yeah, I think in weekly leagues probably a guy that I would avoid, but in daily, I think he's, especially like you mentioned, if you have some flexibility in terms of starts or innings, he's definitely interesting. A few more 2-start options that, if they're floating around, you could even, pick and choose your matchups. So Joe Musgrove at Arizona versus Cincinnati, Jack Flaherty versus San Diego versus the Cubs, Mike Leake versus the Angels versus Boston, Eduardo Rodriguez at Baltimore at Seattle, Jake Odorizzi at Detroit at Cleveland, and Andrew Heaney at Seattle at Oakland were some of the names that stood out to us. I guess, Ben, if you had one guy that you were the most concerned about things going wrong in one of his outings, who's the name for you?
It's probably Andrew Heaney, just because he is I would say the lesser name of the 6 here. But if I had to rank them 1 to 6, I think it would be Flaherty. Then it would be kind of Rodriguez / Musgrove. I like Musgrove's matchups more, but I like Rodriguez better as a pitcher. Then I'm probably looking at Mike Leake getting 2 games at home, then Jake Odorizzi, then Andrew Heaney.
Yeah, see, Heaney's a guy, like, I could see both of them going extremely well and him just being awesome and, being really happy you used him at Seattle, at Oakland, 2 great places for pitchers to pitch. But those are also 2 lineups that can produce a lot of runs, and even at their home parks, they'll mash you, and he could give up 5 or 6 earned in both those outings, and then you're like, what did I do? So yeah, I think Heaney's definitely got the most risk reward. Flaherty is interesting. I like the game against San Diego. The Cubs lineup is very interesting because they are one of the teams that you can get to and you can strike out a bunch of times, but you could also give up a crooked number pretty easily as well. And Baez and Rizzo and Zobrist, they crush you, and then all of a sudden you're out in the fourth or fifth inning after giving up a handful of runs. So there is a little bit of concern there, but if I own Flaherty, he's definitely a guy that I'm running out there. I think Mike Leake's probably the one that is probably the easiest to add, and I think a lot of potential there. Obviously, both games being at home, the Red Sox lineup is really good, but Mookie Betts is dealing with injuries. JD Martinez has been out of the lineup for the past couple of days, so there could be an opportunity where he's facing a weakened Red Sox lineup and much better opportunity to have success.
Yeah, I think we're sort of along similar lines with what we've got there. I think if Flaherty, he's a guy I'm still going out and looking. Go check that waiver wire. He's only about 60% owned. I'm going to write my waiver wire article once we come off the podcast, and he's going to feature prominently. So he's a guy I suggest you go and grab if he is still available.
Yeah, I'm 100% on there. And that rotation's interesting, especially with my boy, Luke Weaver, kind of struggling. That there could be more stability there for sure. We do want to mention Dylan Bundy is a little bit of a name to avoid, but as I kind of mentioned, Ben, with Martinez missing some time, with Mookie Betts missing some time, maybe that start versus Boston isn't as terrifying as it seems.
No, what's terrifying is Dylan Bundy. I mean, it's the craziest thing. I'm just reading through, and I'm just going to read you through his earned runs. So to start with, he went 0, 1, 2, 1, 1. So I think that worked out to be something in the region of 20, 30 innings for, 5 earned runs. He then gave up in 9 innings, across 3 starts, 19 earned runs.
That's not what you're looking for.
It just flipped. And I mean, he to begin with the season, 7, 8, 10, 6, 9 strikeouts, 4, 4, 0. Then all of a sudden we had another 7 innings shutout performance, 7 strikeouts but 4 walks. Then we had 8 strikeouts in 6 innings but 4 earned runs. Then we had 14 strikeouts in 9 innings complete game with 3 earned runs. Then 6 strikeouts, 3 earned runs, 6 innings. Then against the Mets, who are shit, 7 innings and 5 strikeouts. It's just been the most up and down performance. And I mean, when you look at it, you can sort of say, okay, so Los Angeles are quite good. Boston, he had a rough start against, are quite good. The White Sox can get hold of you. Washington are a fairly decent outfit. But he's also given up 7 earned runs to Tampa Bay, who, okay, not the worst lineup. The Kansas City Royals might be the worst lineup in baseball, and that was one of his worst starts. So this is my concern with him, is that he's quite capable of shitting all over the Miami start as much as he is capable of making a mess of the Boston start. I just don't think I can do it with Dylan Bundy, and I'm going to regret it. But he's another guy, much like Tanaka, that I just don't draft because I don't trust him week in, week out to just be. I like to. The way you've seen the way I like to draft, I like to go heavy on pitching, then I like to leave a gap and get some high upside guys. I like to get guys I feel safe starting week in, week out, and then I like to go for my gambles. I like to go for my upsidey kind of guys, and that's where Dylan Bundy sort of slots in the middle. He's kind of a guy that when he's good, he's like an everyday starter, and when he's bad, he's horrific.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see a reason to sit him, but. There's opportunity there. I think another guy that I was looking at kind of fits in this group is Jose Quintana at Milwaukee at St. Louis. He's a guy that when he's good, he's really good, and he had 10 strikeouts against Philly, but he also got lit up by the Giants. He got lit up by Atlanta, and he's in that St. Louis and especially that Milwaukee start. Those are a little worrisome. Are you comfortable just throwing Quintana into your weekly lineups and not thinking about it?
Yeah, I think so, but I think it comes down to the name, doesn't it? Because we know Quintana is good and he has been good, whereas Bundy's never really shown us it. That's what it kind of comes down to, and that is the wrong way to look at it. But I just think It's very tough. Quintana's going to be someone I'm going to and ah about, like, probably every week, no matter who he starts against. I struggle with him as well. But name value, I'd probably give him a start, but I probably would avoid Bundy. And again, it's going to come down to where you drafted them, and that's silly at this point in the season. It's so long ago now, draft day, that you shouldn't be looking at it saying, well, I drafted Quintana 20th overall as a pitcher, whereas I drafted Bundy 50th overall or 40th overall. Like, it should now be who's pitching where and how are they doing it. So I'm going to probably just borderline start Quintana and just borderline sit Bundy.
Yeah, and also, obviously depends on what your rest of your staff looks like.
Of course it does.
If you need that potential upside, I think Bundy is a risk that's probably worth taking. Yeah. But, be ready for it to go horribly, horribly wrong. All right, Ben, this is a lot of fun. It was good to catch up. It was good to talk some fantasy baseball. Like you mentioned, fakepigskin.com will have your pitcher article up this probably today. So if you're listening to the podcast, it'll be up. But for Ben Rolfe, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.